Man, I'm tired of this shit.
Dude, I was listening to that. Leave it alone.
This is absolute trash.
I don't care. Driver picks the station. Shotgun shuts his cake hole.
Passenger gets first dibs on everything. I have my finger on the button.
You know what? You want to fight about it?
Yeah.
Okay,
fuck
fine.
you.
Hey,
Fuck
man,
you.
leave it alone.
No.
It's mine.
Turn your trash off. Now look what you did.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Dissonant Harmonics podcast. My name is Frasier.
And since nobody paid me $1 to continue being Josh Fitzgerald, I'm not him anymore.
Who are you now?
Somebody that you owe $1 to from elementary school.
No, I don't. I really don't. It's not going to happen.
That you don't want to acknowledge.
No, I don't owe you $1. It's not happening. I never owe you $1.
No, you don't owe me $1. It's anybody from elementary school that you owe $1.
Oh, whatever. Anyway, welcome to the show. Sorry we've been gone for a little bit. We still have more tidbits that are going to get released over the course of the next couple of weeks from news and album reviews that we have wanted to get to and haven't. Sorry we've been gone. Technically, I've been gone. I took a trip to Leavenworth in Washington for Oktoberfest a couple weeks ago, and this last weekend I was in Oregon, but now I'm back.
So I'm sorry, you don't get my buttery smooth voice the entire episode.
I was so waiting for Josh to say I'm back again, but whatever.
No, I was going to start singing Reunited and It Feels So Good, but I don't want to do that.
Alrighty, so news. We have some bombshells that went off again. Apparently the music industry has decided that it needs more attention lately, so it's decided that every giant news story that could ever come out has come out. So Josh, do you want to start with anything and see where we end up?
In my Tidbits episode, I talked about John Schaefer from Iced Earth was in the middle of being sentenced for his involvement with January 6th riot, and talked about what the U.S. government had actually recommended in terms of a sentence for him. And I said in my last episode that by the time this episode comes out, we will know his sentence, and so far we have been updated on what he's going to be doing now. And so he was one of the first people that stormed the building and everything, brought bear spray with intent. What do you think? What do you think he's got on his belt? What do you think? He's going to big boy jail for what? How do you think?
I don't know. You tell me. I don't know.
So, due to the fact that he has actually been ratting on every single human being that he possibly can, he has only gotten 3 years of probation and 120 hours of community service, along with $1,000 in restitution and a $200 financial assessment. So the government had recommended 3 years of supervised probation and asked for $2,000 with a $200 special assessment charge. So pretty close to what he already said, but they basically were saying that due to the fact that he has been very cooperative with giving them information and somehow has not been a complete and total dick to everybody, that they're willing to do only that, because his sentence could have been 10 to 20 years in prison for everything that happened.
Well, and so he had bear spray on him, as you said, but I think like the most, we talked about this over the phone, the most they could really charge him with, honestly, since he didn't, unless he broke something or assaulted somebody, which I don't think they've said he did, is that he basically is criminal trespassing is basically the most that they could give him. So it's not like they can't really throw the book at him hard. They can. I mean, it's more of a how do I put this? It's more of a public image issue for him than it is anything. But yeah, they can't really just be like, you're going to prison, because he didn't really do anything. Quote unquote,
he did. Well, it's trespassing on government property too, so that's even bigger than just criminal trespassing.
Right, but even at that, it's still a misdemeanor. I'm pretty sure. I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure it's not like something you can just like throw someone in prison for years unless they've assaulted somebody or broken something.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody in Iced Earth has left because of all of this, and I mean, he's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be on a stage anytime soon. obviously with 3 years supervised probation, he's not going to be touring for at least those 3 years. But he's now a one-man band, so I don't know what this is going to mean for Iced Earth. I'm not a big Iced Earth fan. I never have been, but I'm just more kind of watching this whole thing unfold. I'm interested to see what he's going to do. I'm wondering if he's going to pull a Varg Vikernes, where he's going to just kind of one-man band it and try and do something, hopefully not electronic like he did with Burzum, because that one was just terrible.
Right. Well, I mean, I've never listened to Iced Earth, so this is the only time that their name has even popped up on my radar. So
I want to say they're like more of a power metal band than anything.
I just based on the name, that's what I figured.
Yeah. So, yep, he's, like I said in my last episode, he got his sentence. It's pretty much exactly what the government recommended. So, in my opinion, he got off pretty lucky, but I'm kind of wondering, he's part of this whole Oath Keepers group as a lifetime member, so I'm curious to see how that's going to reflect with everybody else that's involved with that group after he's been ousting everybody that was involved.
Yeah. Right, the rat mentality kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. We'll update it as we go.
Right. So next on the list, and this is kind of a bit, I don't know if there's anything lower you want to hit first. I was going to hit the Fred Durst ordeal.
Well, Angel Maker has announced their new song with their second new vocalist. They released this new track, Relinquished, and apparently unbeknownst to pretty much anybody, Mike Greenwood, one of the two unclean vocalists in Angel Maker, apparently is no longer with the band, and they brought on full-time vocalist Ian Bearer, who, if the uninitiated may or may not know, was the vocalist of Rings of Saturn, and he had left a year ago, about a year and a half ago, due to the fact that Lucas Mann, the guitar player, is notoriously hard to get along with. Apparently he's not a very nice man, and he's not very nice to his fans from what I've read and been told. I think it's kind of 50-50, but they've released a new track, and he is now the co-vocalist of that band, and it looks like he's the permanent addition. So Rings of Saturn, I know, have gone on to become an instrumental band, so that they don't have to try and bring on a vocalist and can stay a three-piece. But I don't know. I don't like Rings of Saturn that much. I don't really dig Lucas Mann's ideology with meeting fans and all this stuff that's gone on with them. So I say good for Ian for joining up with Angel Maker, because they're a fucking great band. They're a good, heavy, brutal deathcore band that are definitely going to get some new popularity with having him in there.
Yep. Agreed. Okay. On to Fred Durst. For those of you that haven't heard, sorry. For some reason, this hasn't really made like the rounds very in a big way for some reason. I don't know why that is, because it's a huge deal. But Fred Durst is suing his old record label, UMG, Universal Music Group, for $200 million for allegedly unpaid royalties.
You know why?
Yeah, I know exactly why.
You know why he's suing?
Yeah, I just said I know why.
He's doing it all for the nookie.
Oh, no. Oh, man, I thought you were going to be, like, serious. I was like, oh, no.
I'm never
sorry.
Serious.
I'm sorry,
I'm
everybody.
never serious. Well, if you're mad, don't worry. After the show, we can go break stuff.
Right. Oh, no. You're fired. You're fired. I'm done with this.
Can't fire me from my own show. I guess I'll start my own video program about chocolate starfishes and the hot dog flavored water.
I am about to proverbially flip this desk and this laptop and call it a day. Anyway, so he is suing Universal Music Group for unpaid royalties for the tune of $200 million. For people that
and they're not the only ones doing this either, are they?
No, he's the only one suing. Let me get into the story, because that'll make more sense after I get into this. He's suing for $200 million, and that might sound like a huge, stupid amount of money for the people that don't know how the record industry works. But he's not just suing for himself or Limp Bizkit's music. He is also suing for the unpaid royalties of the 4 or 5 bands that he had under his own record label called Flawless Records. That included.
So Flawless was a subsidiary of this one.
Yes, but it was
okay.
But it was Fred Durst's record label. Keep that in mind. It was his record label that he had bands signed to. And that included every single Puddle of Mud record so far to date. So everyone keep that in mind. That's a big moneymaker. And then I believe it also included, I can't remember the name. I want to say it's like Mr. Nothing or something like that. Whatever Wes Borland's solo or side project was. And there were a couple other bands.
God.
I
know which one. Is that Blacklight something?
I cannot remember. And then
I know which one you're talking about.
And then it also included a couple other bands on it that I didn't know of or don't know of very well, but Fred had them signed. The reason people might not think this is going to happen, but from what I read, it sounds like he has a very, very good chance of winning this lawsuit. What he is alleging, and what he says he has receipts for and records of, is obviously, and let's start with this, obviously Limp Bizkit, and let's just say Puddle of Mud as well, are back in the early 2000s and 90s were making hand over fist amounts of money and stupid money, especially for their record labels. And what the record label was saying is, and the way we've talked about this before, but the quick 411 is, when you go to make a record, the record label gives you a sum of money, a chunk of money to go make that record, and that's in a form of a loan. They call it an advance, so it doesn't have the word loan attached to it, but it's a loan that you have to pay back. And depending on how much your record's going to cost, all this stuff, the record company gives you $100,000, $250,000, $500,000. It doesn't matter. And you go make your record, and then hopefully your record sales help you recoup that money. You pay back your record label, and then you start making money after that point. The problem is that whenever Fred Durst would be like, hey, how are we doing on record sales? Have you guys recouped your money? The record label would always come back with him and say, well, you haven't sold enough to recoup it yet, so you have to keep selling records and you have to keep paying us back. They finally went through all the books and realized not only was that, basically it wasn't true and it was a bull-faced lie, that they had sold more than enough money to recoup the record label, but also all of his other acts that were signed under his record label, including Puddle of Mud, had also recouped the amount of money that they were supposed to pay back the record label, and that the record label had been lying the whole time and just collecting that money and not paying it out to Fred Durst and the respective acts it was supposed to go back to.
Especially with Limp Bizkit kind of go through its second wave of being popular again too. There's a lot of money that's going to be lost, especially if they're still signed to this. They're not still signed to this label, though, I don't think, are they?
I don't think so. I think I could be totally dead wrong, but I think Golden Cobra was their first record off of UMG. So when they began their second renaissance is when they left UMG.
I was like, because there's Gold Cobra and then there Still Sucks.
Yes. And again, people go, well, 200 million, that sounds like a lot for one band. Again, keep in mind the amount of records that Limp Bizkit has sold, and then also keep in mind part of that 200 million is included in how many records Puddle of Mud sold. And Puddle of Mud, I can guarantee you, just off the Come Clean album alone, sold stacks and stacks and stacks of
between
records.
that and Famous.
Right. Yeah, those two we couldn't get when Famous came out, the single, you couldn't get away from that on KISW. It was everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So I think Fred Durst is probably going to win this. Do I think he's going to get all $200 million he's asking for? No. Do I think that's because he's entitled to it? I think he is entitled to it. I think the record company's going to pull some shady BS behind the scenes and some loopholes and say, see, we don't actually owe you as much as you think. But this is what
sure.
This is why, and you could argue, I think it could be argued, that this is why Wes Scantlin went off the deep end and started doing all the drugs and stuff. Because Fred Durst even said in this lawsuit that after, I think he said after Significant Other, that they still hadn't really been paid much. They still weren't making much money. And then all of a sudden after Chocolate Starfish, all the money started pouring in. So that the record company was hoarding something around the Significant Other era. And if that's the case, Puddle of Mud probably had their money hoarded away from them, and they probably were broke for most of their time. which could
Well,
explain.
yeah, I mean, they're constantly being told to recoup all their money and try and put all their energy and time into recouping it when they didn't have to.
Right. And not only that, but they're, the stresses of that, having to go out on the road and make more money, all that stuff. That's what breaks artists and makes them have mental breakdowns. No offense, looking at you, Wes Scantlin. We all know how that ended. And if that's the case.
Which time?
Well, yeah, exactly. But if that's the case, they could also argue, pain and suffering on Wes Scantlin's side of things. I mean, they could. They could take him to civil court for that.
Yeah, but then Wes Scantlin has to admit that there's something wrong.
Exactly. But either way, so that's actually a big deal, and I wish more people would know about this, because I saw the article get posted and no one talked about it. I haven't heard a word about it since. Now, keep in mind, there's probably NDAs involved and all that, but this is like a huge story that will expose massive record labels from hiding. And I think what's going to happen, and this is why it's such a big deal,
it's going to expose a fuck ton of corruption.
Right. And if it turns out that this is true, that UMG was hiding money, you're going to find a lot of other artists. They might be bigger artists like Limp Bizkit that have the money to fight this in court, but you're going to start seeing a lot of other artists start suing their record labels for unpaid royalties, and you're going to start seeing the record companies collapse if all this money starts getting shelled out of their pockets. And I mean, I'm not saying it's the best for the industry, but it might not be a bad thing. And again, that's if this takes off, and if it turns out to be true, it's going to set a precedent that will shake up the record industry if Fred Durst wins this lawsuit, and it turns out
if Fred Durst wins this, it's if any person wins this and it happens to be Fred Durst, that's going to start something.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be like, okay, Limp Bizkit, for the most part, fucking sucks. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, he's just, maybe this old washed up has-been that is past his time and past his prime. But he has a point. Mm-hmm. He's in the right to do this. And if somebody like, the singer of Limp Bizkit wins this case, you're going to see a lot more start coming out.
You're going to start seeing guys like Ronnie Radke that have the money start looking into their record labels and what they call in the legal world a financial... oh my word, a forensic accountant. I'm sorry. And what they do is they literally are like a drug sniffing dog for money, and they go looking through all the paperwork and see where all the money went and all that stuff. And you're going to start seeing band after band after band start suing their record label for unpaid royalties. And if that happens, we're looking at the first domino of what might knock over the record industry.
And Billy Corgan, unfortunately, will be right.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on. Do you want to start the next? Oh wait, hold on. Can I hit one more and then we'll get into the big three of leaving this week that we've been talking about? I got one more quick one.
The big four.
Yeah. Well,
is it 3 or 4?
Well, the three that have left so far.
Okay.
But first, I want to hit this because this makes me super excited because Josh and I are going to talk about our third one.
What you got?
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure what you were saying. My fault. We're so excited to be back. We keep talking over each other, but that's okay. It has turned out that if you were a kid and listening to rock and metal music in the early 2000s...
If I was a kid and life is a nightmare?
Yes. All your wildest dreams of rock and metal, of reuniting, have come back. Stained has come back. Adam Gontier has reunited with 3 Days Grace. Oasis is going to be back.
Butt Rock Renaissance.
And guess who else is back, baby? That's right. Crossfade.
Backstreet Boys.
No, it's not. Oh. The Backstreet Boys have been back forever. They never left, I don't think. But
now that the fat one's not fat anymore, I lose track. But I don't know if it's NSYNC or Backstreet Boys. But yeah, it's Crossfade.
Crossfade is back. They have announced that they are going to be doing Incarceration Festival and one other big festival to kind of get their feet wet. We can all thank the dude, I don't know his name, but the dude from Rockfeed has kind of been pushing this campaign to get Crossfade back for years and actually went out and filmed like a little half-hour long documentary with the guys explaining why they were gone for so long and what happened. The quick 411 is that they were signed to... They really fought hard to get onto a record label. They really had to prove themselves. Columbia Records signed them. They released the first album that everybody knows and loves that had a really slow burn to it, unfortunately. It didn't take off as quick as everybody thought it would. And so the record label was kind of wary, and then they went on an 18-month tour, which for those of you that don't know how to count is a year and a half. That's an insane amount of time on the road. Ed Sloan, the lead singer and guitarist, kind of started getting burned out. They did the second record, and it didn't do as well as the first record, and Columbia immediately dropped them, which then kind of pushed Ed Sloan into a depression. They brought Les Hall on board to help with the album that just kind of ended up in development hell for 5 years. It finally came out. And then shortly after that, their entire studio burned down with all their equipment and everything inside. And they went, okay, this is probably a sign for us to take a break. Well, after 12 years, because that was in 2012, and with the help of the internet and how things have gone, they've realized that they're actually super popular still. They actually had no idea because they all said that they stay off social media and stuff. So they really didn't know that they were any popular, and they thought that everybody had forgotten about them. But if you look at their Spotify numbers, they have 3 million listeners a month still. And they started getting these massive, what do they call them? Residual checks that for all their songs that they had written. And they started getting more and more of them and realizing that they were still really sought after and loved. So they are coming back to do 2 festivals coming up, and I can't be happier. The little teenager in me is losing his mind right now.
There's actually another band that's actually coming back for the first time in a long, long time in a similar fashion too. So I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing more bands that are kind of on the wayside or maybe gave up or stopped putting out new material like these bands start coming back, because Acid Bath just announced that their first show in 30 years at Sick New World.
I saw that.
Yeah, so this is their first show since they broke up in 97, and they're playing at Sick New World on April 12th, 2025. So a lot of people thought it was fake because Acid Bath has been gone for so long, and 2 of the members have actually died since 97.
Because they're old.
Well, yeah, but I mean... drugs probably.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly. I forget how. I've only recently kind of gotten into Acid Bath, but their vocalist Dax Riggs had to come back and actually clarify that no, this isn't fake. We're actually coming back. Because there's been jokes and fake social media posts saying like Acid Bath is coming back, but their bassist and keyboard player died since '97, so Dax hasn't really wanted to bring it back. But if you don't know Acid Bath, Frasier will know this. They're actually the band that inspired both Mastodon and Slipknot. Slipknot was actually opening for Acid Bath back in the day.
Yep.
And they're kind of credited as being the ones that kind of started that kind of gross, sleazy, New Orleans metal sound besides I Hate God and bands like that and Goat Whore. But... confirmed, or their guitarist Sammy Duet also confirmed the lineup will be rounded out by Goat Whore's drummer and Zach Simmons and bassist Alex Bergeron from Agents of Oblivion. So they're going to be coming back. So like I said, I feel like you're going to see some of these bands that haven't been around for a while start maybe testing the waters at these big festivals. Because I mean, Crossfade, Acid Bath, those 2 specifically. You get those on a festival bill, you're going to get a lot more people that are diehard fans that maybe weren't going to go to that festival now saying, okay, well, maybe now I'm going to go because I know that band may never play again.
Right.
So I'm excited for both of them.
Yeah, no, that'll be cool. This will be fun. And finally, Josh, you want to start off our last
but not least.
Mm-hmm. Everybody knows.
So okay, so.
Josh is actually mentally preparing himself. Okay, it's happening, guys.
No. I'm building myself up to make a joke that's going to make Frasier upset.
No.
So
don't do it.
You haven't been upset by me for a few weeks. So, when your band is so bad that not only do the members leave, the tour manager leaves, the album itself leaves streaming services.
You're terrible.
I get that a lot.
You're terrible.
No, As I Lay Dying is back in the news, and not for somebody trying to. So we all know Tim Lambesis, however the fuck you say it. Long story short, tried to hire a hitman to kill his wife at the time so he could take his 2 kids. Now he's just taking out a hit on the entire band and just trying to kill the whole band off.
Okay, can we not say that? Can we clarify that statement, please?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. He's taking a hit out on his own career.
Okay, there we go. That's a good metaphor to use. And that's a metaphor, guys. It's not literal.
I'm never literal, but no. So in the last few weeks, we've had Ryan Neff, their bass player and clean vocalist that was with Miss May I, has left and has put out his own statement.
Josh jumped up and down for joy.
No, but I definitely sat there and I definitely looked at that, and instead of doing the sound of my laughter that I make when I read comments like this, I laughed a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was last week, correct?
Ryan Neff was the first one to leave, saying that after much reflection that he was departing the group and is the quote, the right step for my personal and professional journey. Now, Ken Susi, their guitar player, who is also from Unearth, he left a 25-year career with Unearth to join As I Lay Dying, knowing full well the drama going on, announced, I think it was last Thursday or last Friday, that he was also Thursday. He was leaving the band, saying that his personal morals were recently tested to a breaking point, and that is, quote, the saddest ending to what could have been the greatest second chance for this band.
And then
shortly after, Nick Pierce, their drummer, also announced that he was leaving, saying this is by far from being the ending I anticipated, and I feel I need to distance myself from the band in an effort to retain my personal health and integrity. And their tour manager also left at this time, and all he would say is that he no longer works for As I Lay Dying, and no, I will not be answering questions. Thank you for attending my social media post. And subsequently, their Europe tour now has been canceled because of the fact that their tour manager has left. So now they're offering refunds via the venues. And there is unverified claims that a video exists of domestic violence against his Tim Lambesis' current wife.
Are we
so
having
this is
fun
actually
yet?
No, we're just getting started. But no, Danny Lambesis has actually come back out and said that it's unverified. It's come to their attention that these things are coming out, and no, my husband has never physically caused me harm in this manner. I'm deeply saddened by the unfounded rumors. But you know who did leave him? Their last album, Shaped by Fire, has left all streaming services.
Yeah, but we know the reason. But we know the reason for that.
Even the album was so bad that it left the band.
It was not bad. That was a good album, and you know it.
It was okay for when it came out, but it definitely feels mediocre with the material that they've been just now putting out.
Yeah. The big thing, I think the only thing to add is when Ken left, Susi, who had the most to say about the situation, he did say that I apologized to Ryan Neff for leaving him out in the cold for about a week because they were waiting to him and Ken. Oh my word, what was the drummer's name? I'm sorry. Ken and Nick Pierce were both like, sorry we kind of left Ryan out to hang for a week. We had to get our crap together. They came and defended his decision with it because he was the first to leave like the week prior. Right, and everybody got mad at Ryan because how dare he leave with a tour and an album coming up, basically.
Yeah.
So that was the big bombshell that started it all. Josh forgot one more slight important and everyone has been, obviously, because everyone knows that this is, for those of you who don't know about As I Lay Dying and how it works, Tim is the primary songwriter and singer for the band. Period, end of story, always has been, that's how it's always worked. So everyone knows that Tim isn't going to leave As I Lay Dying, so now everyone's eyes are pointing to the final remaining guitarist and the only original member from the original lineup of As I Lay Dying that stayed with Tim after the band reformed.
Is Phil Segroso an original member?
No, technically no. But he is the
No,
only.
because it was Nick Hippa and another one, but Phil Segrasso was the one that stayed in the group all the way through the trial and all the way to the end.
Yes. And everyone is now looking at Phil with eyes wide open, going, "Come on, dude, what's going on?" And all he has done so far is said that he is going to he did acknowledge everything and said, "I will be releasing a statement shortly once I basically." Hold on, let me read it exactly because it'll make more sense.
You read the exact quote, and I'll tell you what it actually paraphrases to.
I will be making a personal statement shortly on where I stand on the current situation of As I Lay Dying. There's a lot more bureaucracy / business that I am navigating at the moment, but I will share more with you once a clear path of moving forward presents itself. Josh, translate, please.
I'm securing my royalty rights for these albums so I can still make my money so that I can also leave the band and not have to worry about losing any money from leaving the band because this band sucks ass.
Sidebar, it also means I have to figure out what I am legally allowed to say and what gag orders are on me and what non-disclosure agreements I currently have to abide by before I make a full-length statement because I own stake in this band.
Exactly.
So he's got to pull. Basically, he's pulling a Tommy Vext leaving Bad Wolves. He owns part of the band, but he can't just jump ship right yet and open his mouth because if he does, it might destroy all ability of him making any royalties off the band. He also has to secure his royalties and either get paid out or leave and take payments eventually.
Yes.
Basically, he's saying, I'm leaving, but please give me a minute to explain everything as I get my lawyers to go through all the legal documentation.
Yeah. So, in lieu of all of these members leaving and all this stuff coming out, we still have not gotten any info from the two-man band of As Lay Dying itself. I find the most ironic fucking thing about this is the fact that Loudwire put a gag order on themselves not to talk about As Lay Dying anymore since the reunion happened. They have completely gone back on this gag order and have been pretty much posting about it nonstop as soon as any information becomes available.
In other words, Loudwire isn't going to post about As I Lay Dying unless it's to trash As I Lay Dying.
Exactly. But the weird thing about everything that's come up is that, like we mentioned before, their most recent album, which is their comeback album, Shaped by Fire, also Friday morning disappeared from every streaming service. Tidal, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all of it. This album was completely wiped off the face of the earth, with still no comment from the band other than the statements made by these band members.
No, that's not true. As I Lay Dying...
No, the statement came out after.
Oh, yes. It came out... I see what you're doing. I apologize.
Friday morning at midnight, this album got pulled. This statement came out later in the day.
Yes.
Or later in the morning, early afternoon. I don't know. I don't see a time when it came out.
I read it on my way home around 1:30 in the afternoon when Tim had released, or As It Lay Dying's page had released a statement stating that the band, or that the album
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
It says, sorry for the temporary inconvenience of Shaped by Fire. It's not inconvenient. Not being available on streaming services. We had a 5-year distribution deal that has been fulfilled, and the album has reverted back to being owned by the band. It'll be put back online, but we just need a moment for the processing to take place. Beyond that, we are still sorting through details of what is going on within As I Lay Dying, and we'll have more details for you soon. Frasier.
Mm-hmm.
Translate.
Basically, in other words, so to hit the album part of it, the album was just terrible timing, is basically what that is. The album had a 5-year distribution deal through Nuclear Blast Records at the time. Subsequently, when all these members left, was also the same time that album had reached the end of its distribution deal. So now Tim owns the album again and can make 100% of the money off of it, or however that works, or distribute it however he wants. And now they have to take it off platforms and re-upload it through a different distribution company. And the rest of it is basically saying, we know that shit looks fucked. We'll let you know what's going on as soon as we can release something that doesn't completely make us look like idiots.
Yeah, so essentially this would have been done behind the scenes, and you might have had a seamless transition of maybe like a day where that album hasn't showed up while they figured this all out beforehand, knowing ahead of time that this 5-year deal was going to be null and void and ownership was being reverted back. It's just kind of like, hey, by the way, everybody left. Whatever's going on is going on. Then turn around and be like, hey, by the way, also this album needs to be resubmitted under full ownership of Tim or of Asley Dying. And now Asley Dying has to kind of say like, well, it's going to be on the back burner, buddy, because we got bigger things going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm also reading here that Kendrick, their tour manager, also, as of right now on the 27th, has not answered any questions regarding why he has, quote, just, I will no longer be working with Asley Dying.
He probably can't. It's probably an NDA thing, and he's also probably trying to stay out of the drama, which is fair.
Yeah, I mean, all these people knew coming in, working with this band, like the drama behind it. I mean, I'm more interested to see what comes out and more into that of what version of this information is going to come out.
Well, and here's the thing, right? Like, at first when Ryan left, you and I texted each other, and the way that Ryan left, we assumed that he had left because he's going back to Miss May I. And we're like, okay, yeah, you know,
right.
this was a temporary spot. He sang on a couple of albums, did the bass work, and now he's heading back to Miss May I. No big deal. Now that a tour manager and 2 other members have come out, and one of them has even gone as far to say that his morals have been tested to their absolute limit, now we all know something has gone very, very, very wrong. Because 4 people don't just up and leave a machine like Asley Dying that makes money when right as an album's about to come out and right as they're about to go on tour. You know, if they weren't just about to go on, here's the other thing that we didn't think about. If they weren't just about to go on tour, it would make sense for Ryan to go, okay, it's time for me to go back to Miss May I. But since there's this giant European tour looming, your clean vocalist and bassist isn't just going to up and take off.
Right.
Unless something happened.
Yeah, and especially, like I'd said with Ken Susi too, he had acknowledged that he came into this band fully well aware of everything that had gone on with them and had just kind of stated that, you know, I just wanted to play music and make music with good friends, but yeah, everything has been tested to his breaking point where he finally just said, you know, enough is enough. Susi wrote that needs to distance himself from the group for his personal health and integrity, and I find that statement very interesting.
Right. Well, and it also makes you wonder when Nick Hippa officially left, and Nick had said originally to everybody and in every outlet that he was the most angry and hurt by everything that happened with Tim the first time around, and that Nick had actually sat with Tim's ex-wife in the courtroom and just glared.
As far as I remember, the whole band did.
Well,
like,
but
I know that Phil did.
Nick was there every day was the big deal. Nick was there every day glaring down Tim, basically. And when Nick left the last time, he said what I thought was a good... Basically said what Ken Susi said, that what I thought was going to be a great second start for this band has turned nothing more than like a hollow money-making machine and is basically shrouded in lies and depravity.
Yeah, just straight up talking about how, you know, they basically have wasted their second chance at coming back and redeeming themselves. That statement hits hard.
So my concern is, not concern, but my curiosity is, now that everybody is doing this and saying this, what are we going to find out about the history of the past 2 or 3 years when Nick left and said, hey, this is what was going on? Because people are going to start coming out and talking. And Nick's going to say why Nick's actually going to say why he left the band. I wonder if Jordan, the original drummer, is going to come out and say why he never rejoined. Like, he just, like, because the way that we heard it is that he just slowly kind of faded away and kind of shut down and was like, yeah, I don't want to do it anymore, and kind of just stopped talking.
Yeah, they had stated that Jordan was becoming harder and harder and harder to keep in contact with until eventually he just stopped acknowledging their existence entirely. I don't know if he's with another band or not.
No, as far as I know, he's not. But anyway, the point being, like, now we're going to actually have a real I think we might get some real answers as to what happened last time around when everybody left with Josh Gilbert, Nick Hippa, and everybody leaving. And now we're going to get a whole different ball of wax this time around.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to get a version of it. I think we're not going to obviously get 100% full details unless somebody that's not tied within any of these contracts talks about it.
Well, the other thing is if it comes out that Tim has committed some kind of another crime, whether it is assaulting somebody or whatever, it's going to become public. It's going to become public knowledge, and no version of an NDA is going to keep people's mouths shut.
Oh yeah, that's what I feel like might end up happening because
yeah, that's what I'm thinking is going to happen.
Yeah, because all of a sudden it just kind of came out like, oh, by the way, people said I've been assaulting my second wife. He has not said anything about it, but his wife has gone on to say like, oh yeah, no, it's completely untrue. He would never assault me. And how many times have we heard that?
Right.
I'm not going to say that that's what's happening because obviously we don't have the facts, but it seems really uncomfortable to be like, everybody left. My morals are being tested. I'm at my breaking point. By the way, here's some abuse allegations.
Right. Moving on, we're kind of running short on time. We are about 40 minutes into this. Do we want to just jump to album reviews and we'll hit a topic next week?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. Do you want to do yours first or mine first?
We can do yours first.
Okay. So I had, and I talked about this on my Tidbits, this band. My album review is from a band that released this album about 2 or 3 months ago. They're called Lakeview. Actually, it might only been, 2 months ago. They're a country hard rock band. A lot of their songs have been co-written by either Kellen McGregor from Miss May I or Cody Quistad from Wage War, so that'll tell you what kind of vein it is. Tells
you what kind of tuning it is.
Right. I fell in love with these guys when I discovered them through a friend indirectly. And their big song, The Home Team, which was the first song I latched onto. What I liked about this album, first off, let me say this. The album's long. It's 18 songs long. I definitely
jumped into this album listening to it at work, and eventually after like what I thought was the like first 12 songs was definitely like, okay, how much longer is this album?
Right. And
I'm like halfway through.
Right. And as I explained to Josh, the reason they did the 18-song album is because all these songs have been released as singles over the past few years with no plans of an album coming out. They just did it. You know, they were like, hey, we're going to release singles and just kind of get our fan base going. And then leading up to the album, they announced an album and then released 2 more singles leading up to the album so that there would be, more hype around the album. And then when they dropped the album, all the previous singles for the most part were on the album with 10 new tracks. So they didn't just leave you hanging with, hey, you already have the whole album. Here it is on streaming services just under one album name. Now you have, 8 or 9 or I think it's 9 or 10 other songs that are brand new, never been heard before, never been released before. As I said in my Tidbits, they just got done touring with Stained, Breaking Benjamin, and Daughtry, which apparently they've been friends with the guys in Breaking Benjamin for a while, which I think is great for them because they kind of deserve it. I personally really like this album, but that's because I like country and I like metal, and when they get smashed together, it's really good. And it's not, and I'm going to say something really mean, it's not like the Corey Marks metal where it just sounds like Five Finger Death Punch with a different singer that just sounds like a country singer. It's actually its own thing. There are actual songs on the album that are just straight country without any rock in them at all. There is a song on here that actually has the lead singer of Gideon on this album. And that one threw me for a loop because I was not expecting it. I just turned it on and started listening to it, and then all of a sudden it breaks down into this actual screaming breakdown. And it's like, is the album finally over? Oh no, I'm halfway through. Right. They are definitely more country than rock. Like if you listen to these albums and took out all the distorted guitars, you'd have a country album just fine. The second you add in all the distorted guitars, you have this country metal hybrid. They don't do any screaming except for on that one song, which is called Oh my word. I'm blanking.
It's not called Oh My Word.
No, it's not. I'm blanking right now, but I've listened to it 100 times and I love that song. Anyway, the one with Gideon's singer in it is the only one that has screaming in it. The band is made up of 2 members. One is Luke Healy, who does as far as I know, does almost all the instrumentation. And when they do live, he's kind of like the hype man that jumps around. And then you have Jesse, who does all the lead vocals. So it seems like this is kind of a duo where Jesse's the vocalist and kind of and also is a musician. I know he plays guitar, and then Luke does like all the other instrumentation and programming and producing and is kind of the mastermind. I really enjoyed this. The funny thing is, and the nice thing is, this is something I like. When the full album dropped, there were a bunch of new songs on it, and all of them I really kind of fell in love with. One of them was called Why, W-H-Y. Another one was called Say It First. So there was a lot of gold to be had on this album, in my opinion. It was a little long for me. There could have been some fat trimmed here and there. But with that being said, you also got to remember that a lot of those songs were singles prior to the album coming out. So they were good standalone singles. But now that they're all mashed together in this really long album, it kind of sounds a little repetitive. So I gave the album an 8 out of 10. I really, really, really like it. There's just a couple of points where I'm like, yeah, I could skip this song. Or if you're in like a mood to party and listen to like, Let's Go country, like you have like a few of those and then a slow song, which makes sense. So yeah, I gave it an 8 out of 10. I really do like it. I listen to it almost on a daily basis at some point, whether or not I throw on a song here or there or listen to it at the gym. It's also got a song for every mood. Which is also kind of nice.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So that's kind of nice. There's a couple songs about partying. There's a couple songs about fighting. There's a couple songs about breakups. There's a couple songs about like missing your family. So there's a song for every mood.
There's a song about upsetting your dad.
Yes, there's a song about being a musician on the road and being hard, like not wanting to call home and say how much life sucks because your dad warned you that life would suck, but here you are being a musician anyway. So, Josh, what'd you think of it?
I thought at first you were joking me because I live in a state that is 90% country music. But it falls in the same vein. Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from with Corey Marks, and it's definitely kind of the opposite in a lot of ways.
Here's my problem. I like Corey Marks. My problem is all of his music literally, because he's produced by Kevin Churko, who does Five Finger Death Punch. He literally sounds exactly like Five Finger Death Punch.
Right.
The instrumentation. You take out Corey Marks' vocals and put in Ivan Moody, and it would be an Ivan Moody country album.
Right. I do feel like
good night. See you tomorrow.
Night. I do feel like it. Like I'd kind of like these bands because, especially living in a very country-oriented area, it's not me just jumping straight into country. It is something that I can still kind of latch to some of the heavier stuff. It does kind of have that fat punch production that some, modern metal bands have.
Right.
With having more of a country vocalist. It's like Tim Montana's new album.
Yeah.
Where it's definitely like, it's a country singer and there's country roots to it, but especially his new album Savage is like, it definitely has that rock element behind it.
Yeah.
That, he opened for, oh God, who was it? He opened for a couple rock bands here in July and has had like Jerry Cantrell with him on a couple songs. And it's cool to see these bands embrace not just we're country with a little bit of rock, we're rock with a little bit of country. It's like, no, this is literally it's a country singer essentially backed by a rock sound behind it.
Right.
No, I like this album. I agree with you. There is some fat that needs to be trimmed off of it. The song with Gideon, it kind of confuses me just because, Gideon is from the South and Gideon by themselves are a really good band. It just, you put this album without looking at it and you just listen to it in your headphones. It definitely came at me as like, oh, the album's over. This is a different song now or a different band. Then I jump in and I'm like, oh, I'm only halfway through and there's 18 songs on this album. We need to cut this down a bit.
Right. And again,
I enjoyed it. I do 7 out of 10 for me.
What I would have liked them to do, if you're going to put out an album that's this long, maybe put all the original singles that came out years and years, over the past couple of years or so, put them as a side one, and then put all the new tracks on side B. something like that, so that you can like.
Or you could just put the new tracks as, essentially the album, and then do a deluxe edition that has, the singles as, a side B kind of thing.
Yeah, that would work too. But yeah, I mean, I do appreciate though that unlike that was going to be our topic for today, but we've actually had so much news that we're going to talk about this topic next week. These bands that are putting out like 10-song albums, Looking at You, ENMY, Enemy, this band pissed me off so much. Here's my problem. I love Enemy. I love that band. They're from Cincinnati, Ohio. They're freaking awesome. But they said, hey, we're dropping a new album. We're dropping a new album. We're dropping a new album. Cool. Over the past year, they've dropped every single freaking single every month. And then the album comes out and there's one track on it that's new. I'm like, guys, we've literally been listening to all these tracks for months now, and now you're just going to give us one new song and call it an album? That doesn't work.
Because you can buy the singles, but then you can just buy the collection as a whole album.
Right, and that just pisses me off to no end. Like, I've been listening to this whole album for the past year, except for one song. You might as well have just dropped a new single and said, hey, here's our new single. So I'm glad that Lakeview...
That's really why I like this idea of thinking of singles as the trailer to the movie.
Exactly.
Like, Fit for an Autopsy put out, I think, 3 singles for their new album, and that last single only came out like a week before the album came out.
Right.
And you still have plenty of material to run off of. I think Kingdom of Giants, the next one, I believe they only put out 2 singles out of this entire EP before it came out.
Yeah, I think, I mean, and the big one that only took off was Asphalt.
Asphalt and Wasted Space.
Right. So with that
Wasted Space has the most.
With that transition, what's the other album we're doing, Josh?
Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
What?
Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
What now? That's been out for 40, 50 years?
That's about time we talked about it, huh?
No, what's the album? Come on.
So Kingdom of Giants has put out their new EP, Bleeding Star.
Oh, it's so good.
On Sharp Tone Records. I've been into Kingdom of Giants ever since
before
I think I got into them.
I got into them right after Bleach came out, which wound up being on Passenger, but Bleach was still a single, and it wasn't, like, the album wasn't out yet.
Right. I was on when Cash Out first came out off that album.
Yep.
That was the first time I really got into them because they did have that kind of, like, colorful, 2000s metalcore look to them for a while, and that's kind of where I didn't really get into them all that much. Their lead singer does look like Jason Sudeikis, and it bothers me to no end. So I always call this Jason Sudeikis' metal band. But no, they put out their new EP on September 20th, so we're kind of behind the 8 ball on this one. Like Frasier said, there's 2 singles that have come out, Asphalt being the first one and the first track on this EP.
Which is
and
such
Wasted
a
Space.
baller song.
See, this is what's kind of... I'm liking what these bands are doing nowadays, where we're almost implementing the 80s synth into it. Because it definitely has like the 80s synth wave attribute to when the song starts. And I do like how bands are kind of jumping into this idea and meshing these different ideas together to make them kind of stand out a little bit more. Because Kingdom of Giants started out as just a generic metalcore band, like Old Miss May I, Old Motionless in White. So now they've kind of branched out and made their own sound. Wasted Space, since you talked about it, was released in March 2023.
Yeah.
And has 4.3 million streams just on Spotify alone.
Yeah, well, and the last album, Passengers, came out in 2020, so they've been sitting on this EP or working on it for 4 years.
Yeah, and it shows because this thing is very fine-tuned.
For a short EP, for like a 5-song EP, you get your bang for your buck. That's for sure.
6 songs.
6, I'm sorry.
6 songs, actually.
Sorry.
The nice thing that is actually also produced by Daniel Bronstein, who also produced Spirit Box, Dayseeker, and Volumes.
That makes so much sense now.
So it definitely, they definitely kind of hit, everything lined up in the universe to make this EP as good as it possibly can. Asphalt, I can't say a bad thing about that song.
No, I sent you that first, I think, and I was like, you've got to hear the new Kingdom of Giants EP, and I sent you Asphalt, and we're like, I'm at work at 9 o'clock at night, and we're texting back and forth about how amazing Asphalt is.
Yeah, because I had heard Asphalt pop up, because it popped up on my Tidal account showing that there was a new track, and it was like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know if it was going to be a new album or EP or just a single. And Yeah, no, Asphalt. It's what a more recent Kingdom of Giants fan is gonna like.
Yeah.
It's not gonna really appease probably the older generation of Kingdom of Giants fans, just because it's not just the generic.
It's
metalcore.
much more like, especially since Passenger came out, they've gotten much more progressive in a good way. And
oh yeah,
if you don't like the super down-tuned, chuggy, sometimes polyrhythmic, Asphalt isn't really polyrhythmic, but that almost gent style of metalcore, you won't like this. But I don't know why you wouldn't like it, because it's a musical masterpiece.
No, this EP definitely kind of swung out of left field for me. I didn't like Passenger's album as much as I did the album before it, and I'm spacing on that thing's name.
All the Hell You've Got to Spare.
Yes, that was my favorite album they put out, and this EP definitely is my runner-up to that album. It definitely encompasses all the changes, all the positive changes they've made into their sound.
Right.
And it's definitely shown that Kingdom of Giants, like, yeah, they've been around for a while, but it definitely shows that they've been learning with every release to put out the best possible music that they can.
Yeah, agreed. What would you rate this? I'll say it. I'll rate it a 9 out of 10. It's only 6 songs, but it's a solid 6 songs.
Yeah, I'd go 9 out of 10. Like, I feel like if this was a full album, it might have kind of suffered a little bit with some of those filler songs if you try to round it out to a 10 or 12 track album.
Right.
Like, it definitely, there's no fat to be trimmed on.
No, none at all. None at all. Well, and this is the other thing. Like, we've talked about these bands that put out like 10-song albums that are 3 minutes a piece. Wage War, not Motionless White, Memphis Mayfire did this. I would rather have a 6-song EP that's 4 or 5 minutes per song, but they're a solid 4 or 5 minutes, than have these like pop songs that, pop formatted songs that are 3 minutes long, and then there are 10 of them. Like, give me 6 solid songs, and I will be happy.
Oh yeah, no, and that's what Kingdom of Giants did on this one. Like, Bleeding Star is probably going to be one of their better ones that they put out until, hopefully they don't fall into the same trap of putting out a new album that's going to be within that same 3-minute, 10-song mark. But
they never have.
If this EP kind of, they never have. But I'm hoping they don't fall into that trend.
Right. Yeah. No. I think this might be like a test drive to see what people thought of the EP, and then they're going to write an album like this. But either way, this was solid work.
No, it's good. It's definitely a good one.
All right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will be signing off. This is the Dissonant Harmonics Podcast. I have been Frasier.
And I was Josh until Frasier didn't give me $1.
And we will catch you next time.
Have a good week.